Oh, Chunka.
Yeah, man.
Mm-mm-mm.
We ain't really done this in a while. That's what it feel like. We don't do enough. Hey, man, if you don't know who I am, get out of here. Just turn this fucking thing out. Nah, I'm playing, man. It's me, your homie boy Jew, the charm guy. We got my boy Grizzly in here tonight. For sure.
What's
Man,
the word?
don't forget to hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, throw 50K in the chat. Y'all know we're on a 50,000 sub campaign movement. We got that going on the channel. And hey, we gonna be talking about some profound stuff tonight. We was covering some current affairs before we got started. So we're gonna finish that conversation, the rest of it here, but then we're gonna dive into the special main course for tonight, which is some game. I wish I had a damn some type of sound effects let y'all know we spitting game. Nah, I think the police officer, it's funny. I am working on a book that I feel has been a collective effort because it hasn't just been me. It's been me talking to you. It's been me talking to Rob. It's been me talking to Wise Counsel, and I feel like it's going to help masculine energy in men in our country. All men, but especially black men, because I feel like we are in need of it the most. And so when I think about this guy who, committed this act on this police officer due to, in this retaliatory effort, behavior, whatever you want to call it, I just think he wasn't operating out of wisdom. I don't think he was operating out of wisdom. And I don't know much about it. I saw it, things go viral, and I'm looking at, y'all talking about it more, so I have some information on it. But I feel like, especially when we look at a lot of our men, black men, they are indeed more than likely responding out of emotions most of the time. And so I just think that, man, first off, when an officer, police officer is slain, ain't no getting around it.
Ain't no coming back from it. I remember years ago when somebody HPD got shot. I was like a kid. This was like 90 something. I remember cops crying, running in the street like they went that way, and I'll never forget that. I was like, wow, I had never seen nothing like it in my life. It was a black lady too. She was crying like, I can't believe it happened. And they calling our cars when they get shot. So when you do that, and a lot of times it probably even makes sense to me for you to just bang it out with them. I do that. I ain't going to jail. I'm just me. I'm not going to jail. Like, I'm not giving them a chance to put me in the handcuffs and beat me and kick me. I just bang it out with them. Man. You know what I'm saying? Let God have His will. You feel me? I think in that situation, dude, I don't want to talk like I don't have radical thoughts, because I definitely have radical thoughts. I do. I just think that running over a random cop, I don't see what that does. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
I know what you're saying. You waging war in the sense like I'm gonna get one of them, but like I told you offline, if Drew got a gang and Grizz got a gang, and one of Drew gang members come over here and hit Grizz, and then one of Grizz hit one of Grizz people, then one of Grizz people go over there and take one of your people, that's how gangs do. We gonna get somebody, because we know he's a part of the gang. And ultimately, we don't know who did it from your gang. You know what I'm saying? So we got to go get somebody. You know what I'm saying? I often tell you about it. Tell somebody, you know what I'm saying, close to me told me one time somebody from that community got. And they said, when I said, man, who did it? And they said, I don't know who did it, but we got to get back. And I say, how y'all get back if y'all don't know who did it? He said, well, we went and took somebody from each enemy and that just blew my mind. But it made perfect sense. And they in that world that that I've stepped in and been in, it made perfect sense. In this situation with the man that killed the cop, you knew who did it. You probably should have did your homework and waited and when it got that man, because then you would have really made a statement. You getting a random now you just kind of you killing a cop is gonna make it hot. You know what I'm saying? Man, you from the same neighborhood, you kill a cop, bro, you make it hot. I ain't gonna lie, going out. If I was from a gang that and somebody killed a cop in my section, I'm tucking my tail for a while because I know it's gonna be hot. I know them people gonna come down that hole and do whatever needs to be done to bro, so you can feel their pain. So I think ultimately, I think him just getting a random copy, it just makes no sense to me. But had he got the person, it probably would have been not even maybe a statement that makes sense, but I'd understand though. You feel what I'm saying? I'd understand. And I did see the video, and the dude did look like he was throwing a gun out. So that's kind of questionable. You know what I'm saying? How his son got killed. You feel what I'm saying? It's kind of like back and forth. You feel what I'm saying? But again though, I get the emotional, but man, like sometimes you gotta think it through, bro. This ain't like a random dude. You feel what I'm saying? A random dude kill you go get him. Man, you gotta fight and change. You feel what I'm saying? You do a cop, it's over with. It's over with. Now they don't even care about the cop that killed the son. Because now you killed the cop, so that's gonna override that. You feel what I'm saying? Your son ain't gonna get no justice now, for sure.
I mean, I really don't even understand what's the end game with that plan. Like, what? So you go get the cop that isn't even responsible for the actual killing, and so what does that solve? But
Hmm.
are you? I'm gonna tell you like this, man. The problem with our people is we don't think shit through.
Yeah.
We're not thinking nothing through. I think all the
Hmm.
activism is fake. I don't think people are really aligned with any real purpose. So
Hmm.
at the time they're just acting out of emotion. And that's exactly what women do. Women
Yeah.
women are led by their emotions. And
Yeah.
that's not a bad thing for them
Hmm.
because they're supposed to have somebody who's in front of them to redirect or correct them.
Hmm.
The thing is with a man, who is going to redirect you if you aren't in control of yourself?
Nobody. It's crazy that you said that though, because I remember one time I got a car off of Shepherd, and it had broke down shortly after. And I told my old man, like, hey, I'm gonna take the car back up there, I'm gonna see what's what. And I remember taking the car, we took the car back, my old man took me up there, and the dude, I never forget, it was a dude like light skinned dude with some glasses and some waves. And bro was saying, man, you get out of the car, but you gotta have another down payment. And I go up on him right there in front of the office, in the office, in front of everybody in the car office, and in front of my old man. And my old man was like, hey man, you can't do that. Like, calm down. You can't do that. I'll never forget it. This is like when I was like 21. My old man was like, hey man, you can't do that. Like, don't do that. You know what I'm saying? And don't get me wrong, I've seen my old man go up too. But he was like, you can't do that, bro. Don't do that. Like, I just remember that. I don't know what you just said that triggered me to think about that. My mom was like, you can't do that. I think a lot of times I don't think that women can afford to be like that either, but I think it's not as dangerous for them to do that. That's what it is. It's not as dangerous for your woman to be emotional because she doesn't have the barbaricness in her to just go crazy and fuck up a lot of shit. You know what I'm saying? As a man, you see it every day. You don't have that. You go crazy. You too over emotional. He's shooting up a party with what was that in South Houston? 14 people got shot at a party. Stupid stuff like that. You feel me? Like he's so minimal in his thinking that he think, oh, because somebody stepped on my shoes, now it's my time to show these boys I'm not a punk. Even if it means spending 60 years in jail after I show them I'm not a punk. I think, man, you have conversations with dudes that we know and they react emotional. And man, you often say like, I'm quick to say like, bro was raised by a woman. You feel what I'm saying? Like, I do this all the time on the internet with dudes. I can tell, I don't say that because I don't believe in taking personal jabs at people, but so many people you get to have the words without, like, you can tell, bro, raised by a woman, because if they weren't, they'd be telling me. You feel what I'm saying? These are conversations I have with my 8 year old. My 8 year old is a very wired up kid and emotional. He got behavior problems. Great kid, but he's just over the top with always jumping. And when he do stuff, I slap him in the back. I backhand him in the chest, just like my old man used to do me. Be like, hey man, chill out. My old man do that. Hey man, chill out. I fall. Somebody, let's say we run the plane. Young and somebody fall. Somebody push me. I fall, and I'm huffing and puffing. And my man like, all right, bro, you proud about it. My man's be like, you good. It don't take all that. You good. Like it don't take all that. And a lot of people, especially in this day and age, when they try to tell you you need to be more vulnerable, they be like, "Hey, stop telling little boys not to cry." Nah, you do definitely need to tell little boys not to cry, because whatever they're crying about, unless it's a death, it's not that serious for them to be pushing out that much emotion over something that's small. And I don't think people understand it. But when you have conversations with women, and I don't expect women to understand this aspect. You feel me? Certain things that us as men don't understand about women. You know what I'm saying? Vice versa. But when you tell a young boy, hey, stop crying, it's not that you can't express emotion. It's that, bro, what you going through right now, what happened, what triggered you to be emotional, it's not serious enough for you to be in a corner huffing and puffing for 5 minutes. It happened. Understand it happened. We understand why it happened. Now let's move on. That's what a man shows you and teaches you and preaches to the kid, especially his son. Like, hey, it's cool, bro. I know it happened. All right, them tears falling. Fix your face. You all right? Because I think you get to the point where you think. I think the world, a lot of things, times, and this is again how me and you go back and forth with niggas on the internet. I think people think that their emotions hold more weight in society in the everyday world than it really does. You feel me? Like, I'm mad. You, Drew, I told you to meet me at the club, but you ain't there. Like, man, you fucked up. Man, you ain't even at the club, and you looking like, bro, I got a life here. Man, I told you, I'm like, hey, bro, your emotions don't control my world. You feel me? And I think that's where a lot of black men go wrong. I think that's a lot of black people in general in the society. They think that their opinion and their emotions, and I don't agree with a whole lot of these new sayings, but that saying that says people got the main character syndrome. That's why I feel like we're overly emotional people, because they think that their emotion is supposed to override reality and what's really going on a lot of times.
I think it's important to teach, start early. First off, for all lessons, 0 to 5 is going to be very important. And for young men, they have to learn emotional stability. They have to begin to get some understanding of what it takes to have some intellect with their emotions, because the idea is that when they get in situations where they need to be calm, cool, and collected, as they say, they will be able to do that. And they will also need to be in a space to where they can operate with the opposite sex, the person that is going to eventually be their helper, which are women. um a lot of women's emotional responses are encoded in them because that's how they test. And that's really kind of what we're going to get into tonight. I'm glad we set it up with this preliminary conversation, because it's very important for men to be able to understand why they feel the way they feel, controlling their emotions, and how not to let their woman control their emotions. Because a woman being emotional is her natural instinct to test your stability. That's what it is. And if you do not have the fortitude, if you don't have the information, if you don't have the guidance on it, it definitely can take you out. So when women are getting emotional, in fact, I'm glad Rob just came on here because we were talking about it earlier. I think a lot of times it's misread. And often, I'm gonna say this before we even get to what that means when women are doing that, is um when you look at a lot of our men, because we spend a lot of time on here talking about our community, our men, just look at how they were raised and rendered, like you just talked about. You could tell when a man has just been raised by his mother only. And this is not a co-parenting situation or where there's been a father around. I'm talking about exclusively a woman only. I think that does. In fact, I don't just think, I know, according to research, has an effect on how a young man behaves, how he responds to uncertainty, how he responds to adversity, how he operates with his emotions. It definitely it can be a hindrance when there hasn't been any masculine perception to follow or any masculine influence at the slightest. You know, typically men are going to find that later who hadn't had any type of advice. They're going to find it through sports later on, little league, maybe middle school, high school, and it's going to be a lot later in life than when it needs to be, which is in the very beginning. So it, now here's the thing though. I think we also need to understand that young men have a propensity to act out of emotion. It takes quite some time, even if you have both your parents, you know, to learn and gain emotional control. It's very difficult, but you learn it over time. Because it's funny when you said, Grizz, when you said you was about to turn up on the car, man. I didn't have so many times. You know, in the Navy, I had a guy nicknamed me Tupac
Mm-hmm.
because I just had, I don't know if it's the Creole gene or what, but I had a propensity, dog, to go up sometimes about just,
Mm-hmm.
bro, pull me to the side, like, why are you doing that? Then I tell you.
Yeah, yeah.
And so here's another key thing too, with men. And I actually reached out to Brother Rob and asked him this week to let me know when he was going to Sweet Lips or if anything was happening, because I'm now understanding why positive masculine counsel is really necessary. You really need positive male counsel, masculine male, positive masculine men around to help you and counsel for things like this, because typically we don't cross reference, especially black men, and if we haven't had fathers then we don't cross reference often. But when you're at the cigar lounge, when you're in social settings with other brothers, um I do believe that fraternities, uh, gangs, they do, because that's just what our community has in camaraderie. You get what you're supposed to get from the, you know, or it can simulate what you should be getting from positive male reinforcement, which is cross-referencing, acknowledging of, you know, hey, we are like, we have kinsmanship. It helps us grow in development. You know what I'm saying? So it's a good thing. But brother Rob, man, you tuned in.
Yeah, man. I was man at first when I texted and I see a response, I was like, man, let me tiptoe out of here and work on this summer body real quick for I tap back. But I ain't know y'all all had responded. I was out jogging, man, getting back
Yeah,
to my
man,
fight
that's all
mode.
good.
But yeah,
When
no, I agree with what you're saying, man.
right,
You know, because what masculine counsel, what wise counsel does, it allows you to speak with people who can see your situation from a different angle. You know what I'm saying? And a lot of times it's like this. If I'm the head coach of a football team, I'm seeing a game from a sideline. My quarterback, he's seeing it on the field. But there's another person in the skybox, what I'm saying, who's not dealing with the chaos of the players, who's not dealing with the referees, who's not dealing with all of that. So he can give me a whole nother insight, what I'm saying, just because he has a different angle. So I think a lot of times as men too, what I'm saying, in counsel, we can kind of it's a breeding ground for really training cooler heads to prevail, because a lot of times you're dealing with people who aren't necessarily emotionally attached to the challenge at hand. So I think that really helps out too.
and what we really discussed is being able to master these things on your own. Not necessarily on your own without aid, but not in a relationship. Because if external things cause you to act up, what you think your woman gonna be doing? You know, it can't be two of y'all that's emotional in the house. Ain't no good decisions gonna be made. And if everything is if all operations are coming out of emotions, then most of the time it's irrational. It can't be irrational. You have to have a sound mind. You have to be at peace when you're making important decisions. So that's why that title, what I'm talking about right now, if she's testing you, she's not playing games. She's vetting for legacy, because women test. You hear about it in the red pill community. Women, the shit test. Um, it's often looked at as being combative, but I am offering another perspective, that it is a test and it's innately in them in a primitive sense, because it's a protective measure that they use for themselves. And it tests us to refine us. It's something that we actually need. But if you're misinterpreting that communication, if you're overly emotional, you're going to miss it and you're going to respond incorrectly, which is what a lot of men often do. A lot of men are responding to women's uh emotional stimuli. I need Miss T to come in because she the teacher, because she gonna tell me if that's right or wrong. No, you didn't say it right. But you know, the emotional stimulus, or whatever the case may be, a lot of men are responding incorrectly and not understanding what's really happening when she's questioning you, when she's surveying certain things, if she's complaining, whatever the case may be. It's all their tests that are happening until the test don't much. And women test less when the leadership has increased.
Mm-hmm.
When leadership has increased almost to its maximum potential, women don't test as much, or if they do test or give some resistance, it's in a playful manner. Versus when the leadership is weak or she does not trust leadership, she tends to test aggressively. What do you think about that, Miss T?
Can you hear me? Can y'all hear?
Yeah, yes, we can hear you.
Oh, okay, good. Because I was driving, I had you playing through the Bluetooth, so I wanted to make sure you could hear. Um, I, you know what? I never really thought about that perspective, but I think myself as an example. If I've met someone, even if I wasn't in a relationship with them, but like I'm cool with them, to a certain degree, the more I see that that man has strong leadership qualities, the less I question a lot of things. But I think that when I run into men, I have more questions. I'll pose more suggestions. And I have been told before on multiple times that I'm difficult. But yet they don't say I'm argumentative. They're like, well, no, you're not argumentative. You're just difficult. And I would always ask them, well, what does that mean? But they cannot articulate it. So me feel like, okay, well, am I really that way? But based on your analysis of what you just said, I've never looked at it like that, but I can agree.
So just to catch you up, Miss T, tonight, you know, I didn't know what we were gonna talk about, and I had been preparing for a show because I'm in the process of putting together a book. And this
Mm-hmm.
book has been inspired by life experiences, things that I've thought about over time, needing to address masculinity and what masculinity is, and how does that affect the women we intend to marry. So
Mm-hmm.
a lot of what I'm talking about right now is information that has been cross-referenced, checked, research that is going in the book. I will probably be sending you certain things because I know you're great at checking, fact checking, etc. So you can see
Mm-hmm.
what's going on. But what I decided to do here for men was redirect the idea that when women are pushing back on you, that is not aggressive, is actually encouragement. It's encouragement to the self to be a refined man. And I think that her because I put up a quote on Instagram where I said that, feminine energy reflects masculine leadership. So whatever that woman is doing in your presence is a direct reflection of what you are allowing, how you respond to things, and your leadership, your boundaries,
Mm-hmm.
whatever the case
Hmm.
may be. So that's why I preferenced it that way. And also too, if we talk about evolutionary biology, psychology, think about it like this. And I was actually talking to Rob about this. We had talked about this on the show in terms of promiscuous, right? We talked about whole phase remorse. Well,
Mm-hmm.
and we were just talking through life experiences. But as I began to put research into the book and I got to that part in my research, I had no clue of this. I didn't know that when women are having sex, that their oxytocin, is that correct? How you say that? Oxytocin?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That their levels are extremely higher than men. And so what happens is it causes an emotional bond. Like that, the way they bond to their mates is
Hmm.
a slightly, well, actually a lot different than how men do because men output that at a lower rate. So I kind of pondered if this is possibly because women, when they're mating with someone, they have children, right? And that's what, 9 months that they have to be pregnant. So this person that they mate and bond with has to cover them for that entire time. This is why when women have casual sex, even when they give it off, a lot of times if they haven't gotten the leadership from it, if they hadn't gotten the provision from it, they feel robbed. Um, because we've talked about this a lot on here. That's where sex belongs. We've talked about that, right?
Right.
That sex belongs with somebody you're mated with. And so a lot of times what you'll see with women is when they just give the casual sex up and then they don't get the leadership, there is some remorse. So this leads into that whole phase remorse thing that we were talking about. So I just think there are a lot of things innately in women that is designed for their protection. So sometimes we'll think that women are, we say that they're not as smart as us. That's how we're articulating it in layman terms because we say, why is she going with what she feels over what she knows? Well, it's because it's an intuitive test. She has to run her intuition test to see if something is going to provide for her or protect her. So you might, and that overrides quote unquote logical thinking. But what's happening is it's just she makes decisions off a different algorithm than we do. Men don't have to make a decision based off of some of the tests that women put out there. So the testing, you're not being difficult. You're testing intentionally, and the tests that you provide are intuitive. Does that make sense?
It
Nah,
does
make
it
perfect
does make
sense.
it does. And you know what else that I've realized too, just from talking to different women, for whatever reason, the way a man makes a woman feel, the way a man makes a woman feel during a mating session determines her level of respect that she has for him. Be a good man that has good leadership qualities, but if she doesn't feel like he's mating properly or folding her up like a pretzel, then her lack of respect towards him diminishes. However, it could be someone who doesn't have good leadership at all, but can bend you like a pretzel, fold you like a pretzel, then it's like the level of respect goes higher. And maybe that
Yeah.
has something to do with what you just mentioned in layman terms.
Well, I have an answer for it, but I think Brother Rob want to say something. But I'm gonna tell you exactly what that is. Go ahead, Brother Rob.
Yeah, no, I don't rock with that, man. Like, I don't see that I don't see nothing noble about that. No, I mean, it's a thing. It's a part of the attraction process, but you know,
Mm-hmm.
at some point, so as a man, you it would behoove you to you know be prepared, you know, or just to really just be the type of man who isn't easily but I don't see it as nothing, you know, righteous or nothing inspiring. I mean, it's just a sign of how immature you are, that you still have to rely on, you know, childish games, you know, to find merit in a partner. Like at some point, you just gotta fucking grow up. So it's like, yeah, I mean, you have to, you know, you have to be aware of these type of things and cognizant of it because, you know, like you can either judge the game or you can play the game, but like, you know, at the end of the day, nah, I don't see nothing virtuous, inspiring. You know, I mean, I find it inspiring to be just to be the type of man who's above, you know, petty games to where you know if it's attempted on me, it doesn't really impact me. So I mean, there's inspiration on that level, but I don't see that as no type of you know pruning for some righteous cause from a woman when she you know wants to you know come with some bullshit
I
test or
think
whatever.
when you said she's gonna play the game or try to jokingly test you, I think if
Are we
and that's cool.
frozen?
We talk about leadership, right? Like let's use like a Bill Belichick, right? Bill Belichick is the leader of men. Tony Dungy, leader of men. Mike Tomlin, leader of men, right? But I
Okay,
want to
so
go back to
Andy, you're blinking. So can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. But Courtney, talking. You was talking while you might have lost signal. He talking. I can hear. Grizz talking.
Oh,
can you hear
sorry.
me?
Yeah, I can't.
That's all
I
good.
did lose signal momentarily. Okay, I'm
Oh,
sorry. I'm
okay.
go ahead.
So Bill Belichick, stiff leader. Hold on one second. Now.
I, I do want to and I'm gonna address the folding up of the pretzel commentary. So um when I'm when we're talking about the final form of a relationship, we're typically talking about marriage, correct?
Right.
So when we're talking about marriage, we're talking about a covenant.
Mm-hmm.
So in the covenant, this is more about moral, spiritual alignment, and it's anchored in purpose. It has absolutely nothing to do with lust. If it is led in lust, if it is bred in lust, then it is temporary by default. It's just that's what it is. And so if I'm a man who is surveying a woman who thinks that, then she's not the covenant wife. She don't have the covenant energy. She wouldn't even be on my radar. And if there's a man who's doing the same, meaning that he is everything he's doing is transactional. He's trying to be good for you just for the sex, then he doesn't have the long term in mind. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I got a great example of that. You know what I'm saying? I have several examples of where I can point this out, but more likely than not, when it comes down to a man, if he's leading with lust, something very temperamental, then it's not something that is built on solid foundation. So it's the same thing for the woman. You know, instead of talking about those things, we need to be talking about, at least when it comes to her, is she needs to be able to surrender to the leadership. She's surrendering based off of the leadership that this man provides. And if she goes through all the stages it takes to get to the final form of surrendering, which is right before she's already made up in her mind that she wants to be with this man, that she's going to choose to be loyal to this man, she'll give her body up. That's why the whole thing, if you go back to the freaks come out at night, he was like, she'll give you her body before her mind. She'll give you her body before her mind. You want her mind and her heart and her body to follow. Because again, women are seeking and looking for emotional connections when they have sex. Typically, I think what's happening a lot of times when we talk about casual sex with women in that regards, we're talking about, and I'm taking this from Rob, and I've actually been able to put some research to it, but casual sex makes a woman emotionally unstable.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're dealing, and there's a lot of stats behind this now. So if there's a woman functioning and thinking like that, um, she's not, she's not covenant ready. She's just not gonna get a husband.
Agreed. I
Yeah.
agree.
So like, even again, when women are saying that, and that's why Rob picked up on that. He was like, that's just not virtuous. That's not noble, because your wife, your covenant wife, she should be a multiplier. She should be
Right.
ready to take what you put into her and grow it. But the truth is, the way we operate in nature, it's not all her fault. Not her fault. She has to be on the path towards somebody that's attracting her energy, if she's got the right energy. And again, purpose is gonna anchor the marriage. So what are great examples of that? Coretta Scott King, Martin Luther King, Denzel Washington, Pauletta Washington, you know what I'm saying? Will Smith, Jada Pink. I'm playing. Ain't no Will Smith and Jada Pink. I was playing. I want to see if y'all were paying attention.
Hey, hey, I wanna back it up. My bad. I had a little technical difficulty with these kids, but
I
I,
understand. Go ahead.
when you were saying about her testing you, I think when you talk about leaders and stiff, stern leaders, like I always go back to Bill Belichick, right? And Belichick ran a certain program. He ran a program so stiff that they would they would tell you how hard pause he would get on Tom Brady. You feel what I'm saying? Tom Brady. So I think you as a man, you have to get to the point where if you going through that with a woman, it's okay to shut it down. You feel what I'm saying? Like you gotta shut it down. You gotta he'll cut you in the middle check. He'll cut you in a minute. If you going over the cap, he gonna cut you. If your production isn't up to par when he going over the cap, he gonna cut you. And I think you as a man, you gotta be willing to do that. Cause you can't afford for anybody to be playing with you in no way, form, or fashion. In no way, form, or fashion. You just can't afford for it. You feel what I'm saying? And I think that your discernment got to be your discernment has to be up to par. You feel what I'm saying? It has to be up to par. And and as for the woman aspect of it, again, I just think it's your discernment as a man. I'm not gonna excuse her behavior, but when we talk about testing, I think we at the age, like Rob said, at some point we gotta grow up. If you're not grown up at this age we at, it's all right. It's okay. That's cool. You just can't be over here with me. You just not on my team. I'ma cut you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Agreed.
Yeah.
And
Go ahead, Miss T.
oh, and just to throw the biblical aspect into it, the more you talk about it, the more the realization becomes that this is this is the reason why God does not want you to have sex before marriage, because that shouldn't be the deterring factor to decide if you're going to um, submit or allow a man to lead over you. It's kind of like, and especially again, like you can't miss what you've never had. So if you're not out having casual sex with people and you're doing things the way God designed for it to, well, and the way that they're mating with you, you haven't had anything else, and you're married and you're underneath this covenant, you're going to think that this is the best you've never had, especially if you have that wife mindset to where you understand what it means to be a virtual woman to a man underneath his leadership. I think that there's so much casual sex that happens before to where they put that on the as a factor upon which, if I feel like I want to submit to you based on how you make me feel during this moment. And so now you have all these spiritual lines being blurred and crossed, and so you are in a very immature frame of mind to be able to, well, to not be able to make a good decision on, you know, your.
Yeah, I think that's the issue. Um, what I found though is, you know, in Houston we say something. We say players get chose. We say players get chose. We say that a lot. It's something that we talk about, but there's actually research to back that up. Feminine energy follows strong masculine energy. I don't think a man has to work hard for a woman to comply if he's leading a certain way, and that just means leading in his own life, leading in things that he's doing that's just going to be a benefit to him and others. There's just a certain way a man operates. There's a certain
Mm-hmm.
wisdom that a man goes after, and when a man is walking in that, I believe it was it might have been Brother Rob that said this, but I've heard other brothers say this, you know, where you find men building things, women will come. So when a man is building himself up, when a man is building and he's in camaraderie with other men, that's social proof. You know, when there's some building going on, the women that can be the helper, the helpmate, the multiplier, those women are attracted to something that they can multiply. What a man has to do though is his discernment and alignment has to be right so he can see exactly who that is when that time is right. He
Right.
has to find out who that is. It can't be based off of, um, you know, topical things. It can't be shallow, um, or if he just isn't in the proper alignment at the time, he's not going to get that because we do still have those principles of, you know, law of attraction. You know, you kind of get what you get what you're putting out essentially. So it has a lot to do with the man. It definitely has to do a lot to do with the man. But the issue with men is men just often pick wrong because we really don't know what we're looking for at the end of the day. And a lot of times it is very surface. Is it can she cook and can she have sex? So this isn't just to beat up on women and say, oh, you know, they're talking about sex all the time. Men are typically kind of doing it too. And it takes time for a man to get to a place to where he can say, okay, this is how I should operate with somebody. It's really what Grizzly just said too. You should be at a stage at a certain part of your progression where you want a woman who is going to comply with your leadership, be cooperative. You know, who wants to go after something difficult or be around a woman that's difficult.
Hey, I got just a
And so
smaller pushback. That whole pick wrong concept, I don't really necessarily agree with, because at the end of the day,
You said what? I ain't hear what you said. Go ahead.
the whole concept of picking wrong, I don't think that necessarily like picking wrong is really the issue. I think like the issue, in my opinion, is more so realizing I'm not for everybody. There's nothing wrong with picking wrong. There's no NFL franchise that gets every draft pick right. And these are people that interview players, watch them talk to their coaches, whatever. It's very hard to predict how another human is gonna behave. I think the problem though is like not picking wrong, but like hoping and trying to impose your will on making it work with a person instead of really embracing the fact like I'm not for everybody. One of the chicks I got the most respect for, man. We had a great first week. We was like high school kids, kissing each other face off. She said something, I went nuclear, it was over with. You know what I'm saying?
mm,
I respect the fact that she was like she had a zero tolerance policy for a certain type of handling of her in anger. You know what I'm saying? So she was able to realize, oh, okay, you know what? Yeah, this I like the way it started, but I'm gonna go ahead and ease off the gas. The issue is not picking wrong. The issue is like staying too long, wanting to be for everybody, wanting to be qualified for everybody. The reality is, most relationships that you go in is probably not gonna work. There's a chance it will, there's a chance that it won't. You can go into it hoping for the best, but you should be open to the fact that hey, I'm not for everybody. You know what I'm saying? So we're gonna feel this out. If it works, cool. And if it don't work, it don't mean that the other person was you were virtuous and they were mean or they were like God. We not God ain't don't have no only child. The other person is God's child too. You know what I'm saying? Like so. But that
So
whole pick and roll
I,
concept, I really
I
can't rock.
typically don't have any pushback for you, brother Rob. You know, Miss T accused me of treating you like Craig Mack. She said that you the new Flavor Nia. She told me that everything you said we agree with, but I think the moment has finally come where I have quite a bit of pushback.
No,
So
no doubt.
here's what and it wasn't to devalue what he said, by the way, because
Right.
I think he said a lot of good stuff. But here I
Mm-hmm.
have a question, and then I want to offer some perspective on my picking wrong statement. So the first thing I want to say is you said that you yelled at her.
Yeah. I got mad. She had said something, and I just, I just went nuclear on it,
So my first critique of that is that I think what you exemplified was and I mean this in a respectful way, because most men do it, and I've been there too. But I think that was you mirrored some feminine quality when you did that. So I think for a lot of women, if you're not leading calmly, if you're not setting boundaries hard and stiff, speaking calmly, reinforcing calmly, then they're going to see that a certain way anyway. Most women. That's not an attack on you, because
Mm-hmm.
I have been there too. I have done that too. I think when we as men react a certain way, in the way that they would, or in this irrational, emotional way, then that tells them a lot about your leadership quality. And it goes back to what I was talking about when I say they test, what they're testing for. That's number one. Number two is picking wrong to me is basically saying that I have put someone that shouldn't be in this framework. They don't belong in the frame, purpose, schema that I have. And I probably did not pick them based off of the qualifications for this job. I think we've talked about this before, how a man has a position to fill. So essentially, it's like, okay, let's say we work at Xerox and I need somebody in IT to do a certain set of skills, and I'm supposed to be looking for the best person for the job, not the best dressed. A lot of times men are looking uh they're looking to fill the position, and then they get the person that is not qualified. And it's and officially what happens when you do that, you in destruction. This is when you're and I talked about you some of the things I'm going to be talking about as we continue on. By the way, this to the audience too, as we begin to talk, you're going to hear a lot of, I wouldn't say new concepts, but new perspectives and ways of explaining things that have happened around us. But I'm also going to disclaimer and say a lot of everything I'm saying has been vetted.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, it's been vetted. So you can agree or disagree, but it's vetted, and there's research and books to accompany it, and I will be providing that information.
Yeah.
But as far as like a man, so again, when we come, I talked to you earlier about this, Rob, when I was talking about loyalty over leadership equals failure. And the best example that I had provided was the Adam and Eve tale. Because a lot of times when we look at the Adam and Eve story, we think about sin and redemption, salvation. That's what we think about, because we come from the religious aspect. But when we look at what was the biggest mistake Adam made was putting his loyalty, right, over leadership. He valued the bond over boundaries. And what happens is you end up falling out of order. So if we notice, when Adam was created with a purpose.
Mm-hmm.
He named the animals. He was over over, God gave him dominion. Now I wanna bring up something that's a little powerful as I looked at this text and I didn't think about something. He causes Adam to fall asleep, right?
Mm-hmm.
Remember that? And then he
Yes.
removes the rib and makes woman. Now this makes sense from a surgical standpoint, or some cloning. He just took this being and made her. But this was all done in mystery, because Adam wakes up to see that this is something that's like me, for me, and a helper. I understand it, but he doesn't understand the internal makeup of who this is. And that's key, because what happens later is the woman did exactly to Adam what she was encoded to do: test him, test his leadership. And God never stops testing us in the Bible. Why? Because anything that we trust, we must test. So how can I trust it if I don't test it? A lot of people have a misunderstanding of what God's really doing there. And I don't think it's by accident that he uses a covenant marriage to teach us. In fact, there's several examples of this and why this is important. How can he take his purpose and multiply it if it's not done in a covenant relationship? So we see this in the Bible often. The biggest mistake again that Adam makes, though, is when he was tested, he ultimately failed.
Yep.
He failed because, again, he put the bond over the boundary where he should have said, this is the framework, this is the purpose I have, that we have, and we won't do it. If he holds flame, there is no fall.
Yeah, but I think that was so back to the original point of like the whole picking the wrong person. Well, a man isn't gonna walk up and say, "Hey, Tracy, I like to, kind of, shoot the shit, sell dreams to women and everything like that. And I think you smart and intelligent, man. And I'm a little busy right now, but I'd love to hit that ass twice a week or so, and you just kind of, just play your part. Don't get on my nerves." And the woman ain't gonna show up and say, "Hey, Drew, um, I really like you, but I'm also like insecure. I have trust issues, I really still kind of feel an emotional connection to my ex. I really haven't healed." They don't show up and tell you that. So you're gonna make mistakes. And I don't even really look at it as a mistake, because I feel like that's gonna be a blessing and a lesson. So in the story with the girl I was talking about, we were still getting to know each other. See, my belief is that women should show up as women from day one. That woman showed up as a woman from day one. So when she saw something, that wasn't in alignment with it, she left as a woman. So I respect it. You know what I'm saying? So it's like the whole, you're gonna make mistakes picking people. I mean, like ain't nobody is fucking GM of the year out here. You know,
Uh,
uh as
mhm.
far as the Bible thing, I think God genuinely wanted Adam and Eve to follow the directions. I don't think God created Eve to fuck up and not fuck. God was extremely disappointed when the directions weren't followed. So I don't see. I don't know. I don't necessarily see it that way.
But you didn't understand so you didn't get what I said.
No, you said like he needed the woman. He needed the woman to test the man. I don't think like it's almost like you ever hear.
God, 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 God test is a part of the Bible. It's a part of every major story. And so what I'm telling you is that starts at the beginning, and the way you get that is in the dynamic. But listen, women are testing you.
No, I
It
don't disagree
doesn't,
with that. I don't.
huh?
I'm just saying I don't think that was a
So who
divine
encoded
requirement.
her to be able to do that?
Hey, you ever heard a woman like start talking about, like, let's say she did some real crazy stuff, she was stripping, was on drugs and all this, and then she'll try to say God put me through all of that? No, it's God's grace that allowed you to go through that and come out whole. It's the mercy of God that allowed you to experience. No, that was not of God. God ain't send you to the strip club. God ain't put no ecstasy in your throat.
Is
So
it
like,
is it Joseph that had those brothers?
yeah, the ones that betrayed him.
Yeah. Do you know what he
Yeah,
says in that text though eventually?
I
He
got. I
talks
probably.
about God allowing him to go through that, because if God doesn't allow listen, through the transformation you get suffering. It's important because this is the testing process. If Joseph doesn't get through the testing process, then he never becomes one of the chiefs in Egypt to be able to do what he did and help the other Israelites. Everything lines up. So yes, God is a part of testing, and suffering is a
Uh,
part of the test,
uh,
because we view suffering as bad and not refinement. Suffering is
mhm.
refinement. Even Jesus got tested when he went to the desert.
Yeah,
Yeah,
see, but I don't
I
think a
think
test and disobedience are the same thing. What Joseph did was not of disobedience. Joseph was betrayed. So that's not the same as me being disobedient and
Thank you.
violating what I was told to do. If I was told, don't tell nobody that my hair is my strength, and I tell somebody my hair is my strength, and now they cut it, that's not suffering from my faith of righteousness. That's disobedience and mercy and grace that allowed me to make it through
I,
that
I,
decision.
I think both of y'all got a good point. I think I always got this saying that I used to say, yeah, God gonna continue to test you, give you the same test until you pass it, right? So it could be both. I think the lack of obedience and discipline is in the free will, right? When, like it's in the free will. So he gives you that. Maybe he don't give you the sorrow and the pain and the hard times and the suffering, but he gives you free will to make that decision. And when you make the wrong decision and you go through that, then the grace and the mercy gets you through that. You feel what I'm saying? But I think a lot of times when it comes to the testing part, I think God is gonna consistently test you until he gonna hit you with the same test. Virtually most of the things we went through in life isn't far fetched from what we went through 5, 6 years ago. It's the same test. Some of us won't ever pass it, right? It's certain things that you might not ever get past, and that's on you. And God will continue to give you mercy and sorrow and let you come through it, but you still gonna be met with that exact same test every single time. And I want to answer something. I know Rob just took off, but one thing he said about the picking and it being the NFL teams don't pick to make the right pick all the time. The teams that build well in the draft are the more successful teams. We talk NFL. The
Say,
people
wait,
who
wait, say
pick
that again, brother. Say that again.
the teams with the most success in the draft are the most successful teams. You feel me? Those are the winning teams. The Patriots used to draft well, right? The Pittsburgh Steelers draft well. And for the teams that don't draft well, that always pick bad, those GMs get fired. The presidents get fired. The head coach gets fired. You feel me? So when we talk about discernment and the thing he said about the lady hadn't picked him, excuse me, the lady hadn't picked him permanently yet, but her discernment kicked in and said, oh, maybe he didn't even mean much by what he did. It probably wasn't a real red flag. It doesn't matter. But her discernment was like, oh no, that's not for me. He's not for me. And that was the discernment she had. And in her mind, that was correct. And it may have been 100% right. You feel what I'm saying? But I think that you, as a man or a woman, you got to understand that that's your choice. That's your power. That's your leverage, then. You feel me? A lot of times we give up our leverage in these situations before it's too soon. And now you like, oh shit, I don't have no choice. But when it comes to God and giving you mercy and God brought me through this. Granted, for you, God didn't make that mistake for you. God didn't tell you to go and join that drug ring, that strip club, that prostitute. He didn't tell you to do that. He gave you free will to make a decision. And when you make that wrong decision, he seen it, and then he gave you the mercy and the grace to pull through it. That's how I look at it, right?
Right. You still going, Grizz? You cooking?
Yeah, Rob, back. I just
No,
want to say,
I
Rob,
got the gist. I missed some of it because my phone had died. But no,
yeah, yeah,
I understand. We got the right to
yeah, yeah.
see it differently. I
What? What?
understand.
Nah,
Well,
nah,
see.
nah. On the thing with the grace and the mercy, and then I agree. I don't think y'all said the same thing, and I hate to be I think two things could be right at once, but I think it is. I think God gives people, you got free will to make decisions, right? And a lot of times people go left and they make the wrong decision. God see you in that. He's going to give you the grace and mercy to come through that situation. But I agree with you in the sense that I don't think he puts you in those positions. I don't. The people
Yeah,
with the
we
the,
we
the
we we
happiest
talk.
people I know are the people that just I'm gonna land with this. The happiest people I know personally that I like, I've never looked at them and said, man, they going through something. It's like the married people that I know that go to church, that put God first, that live their life because they have less self-inflicted wounds than most people do. Not the fake ones, but the ones who really living by that. they have less self-inflicted that I know, and I always see happiness when I look at those people. But go ahead.
I wanna bring up a couple things. So yeah, I'm not saying that. First off, we don't now. I'm gonna talk a little bit of teacher talk. We don't know what the test gonna be. We ain't got the blueprint on the test and when the test given. We don't know what it is. I'm just saying that testing is something that does happen, but I think that you can also just be making bad decisions. Everything may not necessarily be a test, or even the small test you don't advance past. But I do think everything is allowed. I think in this conscious design that we're in, everything, even if it's the installation, the technology of free will, even if that's the installation, that is allowed. That means that the intelligent designer has allowed you to be able to respond and react according to how you feel. But it does not exclude you from being able to take a test. Now we can get more into biblical theology later, but I do want to talk about picking. You named the Patriots, the Steelers. They are taking data. They are looking at, I'm gonna say it two more times. They are taking data.
Mm-hmm.
They are taking data and saying these are going to be the best players. This is the best fit. And from the timely data we had, meaning overlooking over time, we see that these pieces, we can predict that they will do well according to
Mm-hmm.
the system we have for them.
Yeah.
That's what a man's got to do in his life. A man has to look at data because you have had dating experience. You have had different partners. You are supposed to look at all that data. You're supposed to make some adjustments, one within yourself first. It should be you. And then once you line up and you're ready for that partner, you should be able to know what it is. Let me get a little deeper. Nigga, if
Mm-hmm.
you're on the motherfucking couch playing goddamn Madden all day and ain't got no job, and the last woman was complaining about money, what the fuck you think the new woman gonna do? Because money is the indicator of provision. That's why
Mm-hmm.
these women up here talking about 50-50 and six figures. They really talking idiotic talk, but what they're actually saying is we need provision. We want a provider. If you're a real provider and you step in, even if you only can cover 50%, she gonna take that. That's what's happening. You supposed to look and say, I'm not gonna sit on my ass and just do that. You supposed to say in his situation when you yelled and went off on the bitch, you supposed to say, hey, maybe why I do that? Why did I go off? Because what that's telling her is, what are you going to do when we lose the house? I just met you. What are you going to do? See, there's an intuitive side of women that's very helpful.
Yeah, for sure. For
And it's a
sure.
reflection of who
For
you
sure.
really are. And if you've mastered your masculinity and look at it as an encouragement factor, you become a king.
Yeah.
But if you look at everything she does as annoying and disrespectful, you are living in what I call the extended adolescence. You're always, why she do that? Well, fuck it then, and slamming the door. In her intuitive sense, which overrides her logical sense, which is primitive. This is biological evolutionary talk we talking right here. For her protection, she's going to say fuck you, or she's going to keep testing you. Because what her system is saying is he needs to be pushed into his masculinity or you not going to have no provision. So
Yeah.
she can
Yeah.
be stigmatized temporarily, meaning that she will stay for that, but it will eventually end if she don't have no permanence in her provision. So when I talk about men at a certain age not being married and having children, when I talk about that, I got research that would at least back up my argument for the fun of it if we want to get into it.
Yeah.
Because what does it mean by this age if he has if he hasn't procreated or he doesn't have any real long-term commitment history? What is this saying? What is this saying? the woman is intuitively asking this question, and I am now coming and asking it in scholastic form because I'm saying, hey, I can probably provide some data to why that is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm cooking in this
Nah,
motherfucker. That's why I ain't been in the
for
chat.
sure. For sure. I think just to bring it back to the when you said the Steelers and they know the data, they literally go back. They I've heard people drop down the status based off stuff they did in the seventh grade. He got kicked out of school for fighting in the seventh grade. The NFL, the NBA, I know about it. Because ultimately they got the FBI behind them, right? They can find out anything, right? They can tap into it and find out anything. They know about all your weaknesses. They know about all your strengths. They know about all your um addictions, none, your hobbies. They know everything. So they looking at any option of it. I think again, that's how you have to be. And I'll take it to the woman side of this, right? Because women be like, well, if they didn't this, and I always tell when I had these conversations with women, I'll be like, listen, you think you want to learn long-term situation with a man where you got to look at it. He got 2 or 3 kids. Did he ever once get on one knee and propose to any of those baby mamas? No, he didn't. Well, you have to use your then discernment to think to yourself, what is it about you that's going to make him get on one knee? Probably nothing. There's probably nothing that you can do that they didn't already do. So that's something you should be looking for. It's to me, the actions are always not so much in the past, but in the patterns, though, right? It's always in the patterns, right? Like it's always in the patterns. In my estimation, right? As a man, if she's been around the block, she might have a reputation. I mean, not a reputation, but a past. And that's understandable, right? And she's 38, 39 now. That was 22, 23. What has she done from 25 to 32? She's gotten better. Maybe it's time that she understood where she went wrong, and maybe she is now who you were looking for. Because again, I trust the patterns more than the past, and a lot of the past got it helps me to understand the patterns too. I don't want to confuse that. You know what I'm saying? So I think it's not so much about always making the right choice up front, but it's a process. It's a process. It's like getting a job. I gotta pass. I gotta fill out the application. I get past the application part. Then I got the drug screen. I might fail the drug screen. I ain't qualified for the job then. I might pass the drug screen and then they check my background. My background fucked up. Then now that rules me out. You feel what I'm saying? I think it's a process. You feel what I'm saying? And I think a lot of times we skip it. We skip it. You might look at her resume and say, oh, this resume perfect. She good for the job. But shit, she might have that perfect resume because she lied on the fucking resume. You feel me? She gonna fail the fuck out that drug test. She on everything in the book.
Right.
We gotta use our brain with that. You feel me? That's on both sides of the offense though. But we gotta use our brain with that, especially as a man, because you're not gonna get that excuse. You're not gonna get that. You're not gonna get that leeway.
Yeah, I think experience is the best teacher, man. And what are you trying to do? Are you asking questions? Are you asking qualifying questions to somebody? You know, or when you're in the I don't like talking about dating because I think one of the issues with dating is it's already a casual setup. So I really like to talk about the end goal, which is getting married. But let's say when you are getting around, just in friendship. See, let's talk about this. Are we starting with friendship? Are you asking qualifying questions even in friendship? Do you know this person? How is it that we end up? I'm not saying that this doesn't happen because it actually does quite often, but the first 2 times you was in situations and you realized that you didn't know enough about the person, why you in the third situation and you running the same you in the same situation. So the first time you was with somebody, You realize they was fucked up. You didn't know this, that, and the third. God don't want him on here. God don't want, hey, cause I got a message.
Yeah.
I got a message. We're gonna have Tracy lead the choir.
Yeah.
I got a message. Nah. I'm fucking with Rob,
Yeah.
man. But the point is, and I don't want to pick on Rob. I don't want to pick on Rob, but I think his character tonight is to push back. So I'm just, giving the pushback. And sometimes you can, that contrarian energy that he was displaying. I'm not like, I'm not picking on my boy, but women don't do well with that. Women don't do well with like this complainer spirit. You always got, because that's what they're supposed to do. And they're doing it with reason. They not just doing it to be doing it. I've gotten so sensitive with women that I'll be able to tell, like, okay, she want me to wash that plate. Because I know the first time I didn't do it. You know what I'm saying? She wants me to respond. You can kind of feel that. And I think women are responsive to that. They like that. Well, he can pick up on what I need. Yeah, I can pick up on what you need. But if you can't pick up on what she need, it's going to be a problem. And so I'm just reframing what we see women do, because I think even myself, as I've been talking about women, that's popular in the space of relationship. We critique women. We know what the problems are. Now we're stepping into solution. What's the solution to the problem? The solution is just going to start. It starts with the man, because I don't want to have to fight for her. I don't want to have to fight for her discipleship. I don't want to have to, if I have to fight you to get you to understand, if I have to force you to do what I'm trying to do, you don't respect the leadership, you're not confident in the leadership, and then this is just not going to be a good partnership in the end. Because I need somebody who chooses to be loyal, not loyal out of obligation. I need her to choose to be loyal because she wants to choose. When she's choosing, the space is at peace. But a lot of times, men are inviting women in who they gotta force to do shit. That's damn near, you almost putting yourself in a position where you gotta beat a woman up, and you don't want to do that.
Yup. 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 I definitely don't believe in that. I believe in holding them down and burning the bottom of their foot, so every time they step, they can think about what they. No,
Ah
I'm fucking with you. Hey,
man,
I'm fucking with you. I'm finna do that to my lady in a second. Finna bring her
ah
back.
man, the channel's over. They gonna be like, what did he say? They're gonna have AI run all kind of programs. But I'm glad that you showed up, Miss T, because
She disappeared that fast. The circle came on.
you are listening to what I've said. I know it's a new perspective. So typically when things resonate, it is the subconscious, the deep intellect, as I call it, that responds with peace because you've made a connection. Because I believe that the deep intellect, the subconscious, knows a lot more than the surface. So what I said, was some of that hitting home?
You know what? Yeah, in many forms. From the leadership aspect to it, to the test aspect to what it did was it just opened a new way of thinking things and putting a different name on it. You know what I mean? It's like we have a tendency to label something like, oh, they're narcissists or they're this or they're that. It's like, no, let's break down the behavior and see where it actually stems from. And the fact that you're able to differentiate between something that is innate within us, something that we cannot control, versus things that are scholarly, things that we may pick up along the way. I think that's important because we label things and we call it as that and we treat it as that. But when we truly understand the baseline for the behavior, it helps us navigate through a plethora of situations. And I agree with you. Like, I don't want to pick on Rob, but I'll give an example. I know how to handle conflict because I come from a family where I've seen that handled well. I'll be 45 years this year. My 46 years. They're still married. Why are they still married? Because, as said, God was the cornerstone. But my dad has a way of leadership to where he doesn't. Let me tell you something. I have yet to see my father spiral out of any situation, any level of conflict, even if we could be somewhere out, and let's say things are not being conducted in a way in which it's supposed to go, he doesn't spiral. He always remains calm. There's a level of calmness to his level of leadership to where it exudes the behavior that he wants to see. And in retrospect, the way my mom reacts to that is like what you said, is very calm. Even if they come to a point to where they disagree, no one spirals. I'll take myself as an example. I could meet, I'm just making something up. I could meet somebody. One thing about me, I ask questions. I ask the uncomfortable questions. And I know Rob made a point and he was like, well, hey, women don't come out and say, well, I'm this and I have that. Yes, they do. They don't come out in that label. Listen, if you listen to a person's conversation long enough, it's almost like textbook. You can pick off and say, okay, so see, I see you have issues with this. You don't necessarily have to voice that to them, but the more you talk to people over time, they'll tell you what their issue is. They're gonna show you what your issue is. If I'm having a conflict with a guy, and let's say we don't get along, and you go from calm to 10,000, I'm turned off. Why am I turned off? I'm turned off because in my mind, if I foresee myself having a future with you, I know challenges are going to come. The more things grow. Once you pass one test, that doesn't exempt you from all others. You've passed that test to help you with this next monumental test. So if your attitude goes from 0 to 20,000 over something that's relatively minute, what is your behavior going to be like when it's extremely monumental? Because see, being calm and having a level head, man or female, it prepares you for those challenges that were probably meant to break you apart, but yet you learn to bond and stick together. So, like, everything that you have said made perfect sense.
So that's pair bonding, what you're talking about. So we are aligned and anchored in purpose with your dad. So I've removed toxic masculinity from the curriculum, and I've come up with 4 levels of masculinity. I'm going to be introducing this, but what you're seeing in your father is the final form, which is called covenant masculinity. And so on covenant masculinity, husband energy, his wife is going to respond in a certain way. What you need, justice. But so the feminine energy is reflecting again the masculine leadership, and that's what you're seeing. When you have that in a family, it's going to affect everyone, even you. Like you said, this is how I'm going to respond to adversity. This is how I'm responding here, and that's why when we talk about a family unit wise is important. God doesn't bring his purpose through single parenthood. If it's let's do some research and see where it may have happened. But typically the nations are born through the covenant relationship for a reason, and there's a reason why it operates the way it operates. Why do I bring up the Bible? I bring up the Bible because, and I would implore anybody out there in TV land to do the same, is do your research. And what you're going to see is that the Bible is the only book that has the most complete comprehensive idea of covenant marriage. Even secular people who do not believe in Christianity and do not believe in God follow its path because inside of it, you can cross reference it, biology, and psychology simultaneously, and it lines up. I'm not going to lie to you. In my research, I found it to be one of the wildest things, but it's the only place that this happens in the Christian Bible. And it explains exactly what we're seeing in the relationship dynamic today. And I'm talking about whether it's good or bad, it's explaining what to look for. A lot of times people are saying that they're walking upright or walking in a certain position and they want a certain mate. But what they forget is for the man and the woman, the unifying cause for two to come together is going to be the purpose. It's going to be the purpose. The purpose must be aligned. Okay. Um, if a man is locked into his purpose, which is his frame, and he's walking a divine walk, a woman, even in times of tribulation and suffer, will still continue to go. One of the best examples of that is Sarah following Abraham. She did. He made a lot of different changes and sacrifice, but his leadership is stable. When leadership is stable, she will follow you through all sorts of problems. That's why preliminary testing, that intuitive testing she does, even though it's she knows why she knows she's testing you, but the different tests are more intuitive, meaning that I'm gonna test him, but instead of getting given the math test today, I just feel like I need to give him the geography test today. Oh, this nigga can't use navigation. Uh-oh, it's a problem. Because intuitively, because she's encoded by God to give test. See, I'm already realizing certain things I just gonna have to cook on my own. And it's no disrespect because a lot of this information, everybody ain't gonna be able to handle.
Correct. Correct.
But if you can't see the test, because God says, what? I'm the same today as I was yesterday, tomorrow, today, forevermore. I've been the same, meaning that God is a tester because he can't trust what he doesn't test. And the integrity of the test had to be a mystery to man because his test is of man's character. If man was involved in the creation of Eve, she'd have probably had a BBL and some high heels on. No, God crafted and created for man what he needed.
Right.
Right from his bosom, right outside of him, he crafted and encoded the test for men. This is why we're vulnerable through our women and our children. That's where we're vulnerable. So where there's no leadership for a woman, where there is no leadership, she's going to seek guidance from external devices. That's the serpent. The serpent is social media, friends, people that aren't married. That's the serpent.
Right.
The external qualification of what's right and wrong, because leadership is absent. Leadership provides confirmation of what God's trying to tell her. Y'all ain't ready, man. Hey, man. Yeah. I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
And so through the leadership comes the servitude that the woman has underneath that level of leadership. Um, and you know what? I put leadership at the very, very forefront of everything before I like knowing the type of job you have, how much you've made, all of that can change. But what is your character like? What how is your character indicative of the type of leader that you are in so many different components? Because it's hard to change character. God has to change character. You know what I mean? So everything else can kind of go, they can fade away, those things can change. But it's important. This is another. important that families stick together. So young boys and young girls understand the dynamics of leadership, and they understand the division of roles, because this God doesn't work through fluidity. Not like that. Every person has a position, they have a place, they have roles, they have responsibilities, and it works together as a family unit. But just like our body works together as a complete unit, but each section of our body has a different role and responsibility. My eyes don't do what my fingers do, and my toes don't do what my hips do. But in essence, I need all of that together in order to operate as a human being. So I feel like that's important. That's extremely important.
Hold on, I'm back. I'm sorry about that. But that's why I'm working on this. It's a work in progress. I actually have something I'm gonna send to you tonight. It's groundbreaking. It's groundbreaking because it's comprised of a lot of time and experience, fact checking and stuff like that. But from testing the trust, you know what I'm saying? The masculine journey to covenant leadership. So I talk about your father a lot, and he's the example of the final formation of man. What does that look like? But there's 4 levels of masculinity, like I said. You know, I'm not going to talk about all 4 levels, but one of the first level is survival masculinity. A lot of men are in survival masculinity, and that's where women are meeting them at. A lot of men don't get out of survival masculinity, don't know where I'm going, don't know my purpose. I need to work to survive. Trying to figure things out. You cannot mate properly in that status because you haven't established the framework that will meet test head up and eventually get the test to subside. The tests are going to come naturally, but you want the test to subside because you have to provide comfort. You have to provide comfort in your leadership. Now, a part of it is also discerning who can do this, because you'll know where you are by how the feminine energy is responding to you. Also, does that feminine energy want you to neglect purpose, or does it want to get in and multiply? So if you're doing stuff, this woman may want to come do stuff for you. She sees that you're going on business meetings. She sees that you're writing something, writing a book. She wants to help you. She finds herself wanting to be a part of what you have going on. Just like Sarah so desperately wanted to have this child so her and Abraham could birth the nation. She wants to be a part of your purpose. We have seen this so many times. There's so many examples of this. I want to talk about this though. This is this truth that I'm discovering and that I am putting in scholastic view is very new. It's just what it is. It's new. It's filling in the gap between red pill, secular, and theology information on this. And it's merging it together. And the awesome part about it is the Bible still reigns supreme because it's the supreme intuitive information. But it pulls it all together and it gives clarity. The one thing it's going to do, it's going to convict you. If you're a woman, if you're a man, it's going to convict you because it's asking you to challenge yourself. It's asking you to act something. That the red pill is power dynamic argument, and it's about hacking the system because it is rooted in the pickup artist community. The Bible just going to convict you because you ain't living right. So if you ain't living right, it's just going to get you. Secular information is going to talk about communication skills and love language, which there's nothing wrong with that. But these two right here, the secular and the red pill, it has a lot of temperamental characteristic to it. Or I would say a lot of the secular information without the real meat to it, it's kind of hard to make it stick. The Bible just needs to be decoded. It always has to be decoded. It told you that. It told you that on its own. So it's packed with information. It just needs to be decoded. You don't understand. You gotta grab understanding from it. But all of these things, when put together, we get understanding. Because in this format, right, we've had enough time go by on earth that we've had literature, study, and research. So all we need is the mind, someone to come in and question and pull it all together. And that's what we're doing here on the Charm Hour. That's what I'm doing. I'm pulling it all together, multidisciplinary conversation, pulling it all in, science, research, everything pulled in into a book that is talking about what is the key figure in all of this is a man operating in his perfect masculinity. And that's what God calls you to do. That's why when people talk about purpose, being purpose driven, what does that mean? Being on your purpose. And even women, I had a question from somebody today. It was like, well, what do I do? How do I find a man? Get on your purpose. Get on your purpose, whatever your purpose is, because wherever you're called to be, you are going to align with the mate who is rooted in his purpose. Because all these examples that I've given, or even in successful covenant marriages, they're anchored in purpose.
You know what? I know you're not lying. And it's two things. This is the reason why I've always said women don't need to go out and look for men. And I'm gonna use my mom as an example. Well, she was playing in the church, right? She was going to church. That was her purpose. Because Mimo started her young, playing the piano. That was her purpose. She has lived her purpose since the age of 3. Okay. Being a music teacher, teaching at the same school for so many years. But prior to all of that, she was playing in the church. Well, where did she meet my father? At church. She was living in her purpose. She wasn't out looking for anyone. He just so happened to move here from another state, needed to find a church home, so he chose one. Unbeknownst to him, that's where God led him, because God led him because God had a purpose for him. And so they wind up meeting each other. So they didn't have to go out. Now, that doesn't mean that they weren't praying and asking God, God, send me someone. It's nothing wrong with that. But after you've said your prayer, you need to ask God, okay, God, going forward, what is it that I need to do as far as my purpose in my life? And you need to follow the path and trust the process. And when you do that, you'll run into whoever God has for you. This is the reason why when women be like, or if I hear women say, oh, I'm out to find me a husband, find me. See, that's what you're finding. The man finds. You just need to live in your purpose, in your level of authenticity, and you'll merge. You don't know how long it's going to take, but you have to trust the process. And when
You have to trust the process. And since God is the author of purpose, if you follow the calling, then you actually allow for something
Mhm.
that has been cross-examined as well through research as a phenomenon, but a lot of people have confirmed this as divine intervention. So divine intervention is the unique time that things happen, because at the unique time when things happen, it allows for the opportunity for two to confirm things that they may have been feeling on inside. And this is what that divine alignment looks like. So when people are beginning to come together, now something that I've talked about, I don't want to get too far into this because this is something that I'm still working through, but something that I used around my book, but I didn't really get to insert it was I think the double slit test in quantum physics, where they talk about how they did this test with this electron when they was paying attention to it. And I might be all over the place with this. And of course, I have to go back in my notes. If I got to correct things, I will. But y'all just follow me. Y'all know I just be spitting off information. When they were paying attention to the electrons and how they went through the splits or whatever, when they looked at it, it looked like it moved the way they thought it would move when they were paying attention to it. Like it almost moved like it knew it was watching them when they watched these electrons. But when it wasn't paying attention to it, it went all over the place. It did whatever. And there's also, if you know, as far as like there's also scientific evidence that points to these particles being able to be in other places where they move alike, almost in sync. Why am I talking about this? Because that is evidence, and quantum physics is looking at this and testing this as, hey, this energy that we can't explain operates in consciousness. So if it's doing that, if there's this intelligent design behind this, we're made up of that stuff too. Why would we not align with each other when things are calling us, the consciousness that's within inside of us to get us to do things? So that was kind of something, that I was playing with or thinking about putting in the book too, because I feel like that's law of attraction. When you are following the call, you will come together, you will meet people. Some relationships don't end or don't work well because a lot of it is based off of duty. We've been programmed to think about duty obligation or duty loyalty. And for men, this is bad because it puts the loyalty above the leadership. We were talking about that earlier. And I set it up where I was talking about Adam. Remember, Adam is made first, and what comes with Adam is his job, his purpose. His relationship comes next. He doesn't get a relationship without his purpose.
Right.
If he doesn't have purpose, he doesn't have a frame. He doesn't have something for her to follow. The frame is the vision. That's what it is. The frame is the vision. The woman needs you to have a frame and a vision for her to follow. And she needs to know that you've got boundaries because she don't want to get out of line. But if she can shake your boundaries, if she can move you and shake you. See, y'all get caught up in the serpent. Y'all still talking about the serpent. The serpent, he done got more famous than the story. Y'all talking about the serpent and the devil, and you didn't miss the whole point of how the serpent even becomes a problem. The serpent isn't a problem if leadership is present. Leadership's gone, the serpent's an issue. So really, even from the beginning, Satan don't have much of a fight, or the energy doesn't have much of a fight when a man stands firm into his leadership. We know that this is important because after this, we have what I call the redemptive relationship model. God begins to carve out what relationships are supposed to be because there is no ruling for it because there was no need. But it has to come into play, and God has to spend all the way up until present day explaining to you a complex idea he had because we how in 1886 what I'm saying might not make sense because there's just not enough information for people to put together or converge on. But now that we have it and we can reference different research points in mass communication, it can make sense on a mass level. So timing is everything. You cannot trust what you don't test. We all do it. Even us as men, everybody. In fact, it is embedded in our human code. God does it, we do it, we all do it because we want to trust what we can test. Before we put an airplane in the sky, we want to test it. Before we put some heavy machinery on something, we want to test it. Everything has to go through a test. When we got a gun and we create it and it looks all fancy and nice, we want to test it. We're testing everything so we can trust it.
Teachers do that too with students because this is like if I'm teaching you something, I have to test you based on however you performed on that test. You know, if I need to move forward or if I have to go back and refine something. Because it may not necessarily be that it's a level of incompetence, it might be delivered, it might be the resources that I use. So we test you before we move on to something else. Well, why is that important? Well, if you can't understand this concept, You can't move on to critically think to a larger concept. So we need to continue to work on this until we've refined it enough to where you've met a level of mastery and yet we can move on. Well, why is it important? Because what you learned in that level of mastery, you need it for the next skill. You need it for the next thing that you're going to have to exercise. So I think with the way that you broke it down, like that is so true. And I think that before people become argumentative, they need to actually sit back and let it manifest. It like I've heard conversations between men and women. Oh, a woman or a man may present something, and they go, "Why you said I was just testing you to see what you was gonna say?" And it's like, "What? You just tested me to see what I was gonna say?" Like it seems like it's ha ha ha, but it really theoretically is. I really want to see where your mindset is. If I can even trust this amount to continue to move forward. I'll mask it with a joker, LOL, at the end, but there's really a purpose behind that design. I don't want you to get offended. I don't want you to get angry. So I'm going to present it in such a way to where it doesn't feel harsh or aggressive or demanding, but it really is a test to see if I can trust you enough to continue to move forward. So yeah, you in essence, we do that all the time.
So, like I promised y'all, I have a new season of information coming. This is a part of it. I really wasn't expecting to do it tonight, but we ain't really know what we was gonna talk about. So I thought this would be a good pilot. But I'm getting the results that I think I wanted to get. I've shared it with a small group of people, and I'm talking about very small, but I'm sharing information from the book as it comes together. So man, it's gonna be available. I don't even have an availability date right now, y'all. I'm just kind of giving y'all some of the curriculum, but it is groundbreaking. I can assure you that it's groundbreaking. And what's in it has not been shared really ever. It's a first of its kind. I can guarantee that. So, man, this has been a great show. I'm gonna text you, Miss T, because I want to give you a snippet. I want you to look at it and you just tell me what your critiques are on it. But hey man, it's been a great live. I love y'all. Peace.
Oh, Chanka.